But I remember just caving with my chest to the ground and getting up and just being so angry with God because I wasn't dead. Yeah. And I was bound and determined that day to die. I have an AK next to me. I put it to my chin and I pulled the trigger and it blew out the side of the chamber.
Let's be honest about recovery.
The rewards, the challenges.
Let's talk about our failures. We are flawed people, after all.
Let's challenge the stigmas that weigh us down.
Because while most of us are looked at, few of us are seen.
Let's talk about addiction.
And how Christ overcomes our weaknesses.
Because we are loved.
Because we are loved.
Because we are loved.
We are loved.
We are because loved. We are loved.
Hey, my name's Josh Bassett. Delivered from suicide, drugs, a life of sin, been shot, stabbed, beat, ran over. Came to tell you about how God changed my life and what He's done in my life since I've been saved.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Jesus Loves Addicts. We are thrilled that you're here. Today's guest, I'm excited about diving into his story. I know very little about it, but it seems quite colorful, and so we're looking forward to that. His name is Josh Bassett. This is a gentleman whose life was drastically changed on November 25th in 2019, and his professional life is split into two fields. He works in sales to include auctions, but he also does security to include being a bodyguard for some pretty colorful folks. And so we'll chat about that for a little bit. But his passion, as interesting as some of that will be, as you will see, his passion is talking to people about where God has brought him from and where God has brought him to. And so that really is the crux of the matter anyway. And so we're looking forward to diving into that. He is involved in ministry currently, both personally. He likes to evangelize wherever he goes. He shares his story, but he's also involved in a ministry called Overcomers. And so we're really happy to have Josh here and looking forward to jumping into your story, Josh. And so I know this is a vague question, but where might that begin? What did Josh's childhood look like a little bit?
Oh man, that's a great question. So I grew up, my mother was always a strong Christian woman. She taught me and my brother to always trust and, just lean on the Lord at an early age. Our dad was pretty rough. I watched him beat my mother, stab my mother, just a lot of different things. And went through a lot as a kid, a lot of abuse. And
at the hands of your father. Yeah.
And as I got older, hate grew into my heart, and it grew. My dad was 7 foot, 500 pounds solid. I mean, he was a wrestler, a bootlegger, long shark. And I always said one day I was going to whoop him, and I started boxing at a young age. Left home when I was probably 14, and just in and out of. I went to Eufaula, Oklahoma for about 4.5 years up there to Calvary Boys Ranch. Went to Melbourne, Florida, Faith Children's Home for a little while. And I always felt thrown away. I always felt like I was the last option, you know what I'm saying?
These were places you were sent to?
As a kid, yes, ma'am.
Based on behavior?
Not really. So I lived with my stepdad in Arkansas. He was in the military, so he was gone a lot. And he was a very good, strong churchgoer too as well. Down to the point where he drove the church bus every Sunday. He was also the church mechanic. So when he would leave with the military, I would have to go places, Now, that would be the Melbourne Children's Home trip out of Melbourne, Florida, Faith Children's Home. The Calvary Boys Ranch would be out of behavior.
Okay.
So I got sent back to live with my mother instead of being sent somewhere else, and it wasn't going to work. So it was either come home or come back, to a boys' ranch or a children's home, or stay there. So I was like, you can shoot me out. I'm out.
Yeah. So did you have siblings going through the same kind of thing?
I have an older brother. He's much older than me. So he's always been. He was there when we were younger, but, as you get older, you kind of spread your wings and leave. So he had his own family, his own thing, and it wasn't that he was just absent. He had his own family. He
on.
had his own life,
Yeah.
you know? So, he knows about a lot of the stuff. And I mean, he was back and forth and I'm, you know, we could call on him and he was big brother. He was coming, you know? My brother was a youth pastor, strong faith, just my brother's my hero.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like if he could whoop 20 people, I was going to try 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that was my brother, you know?
Yeah.
It didn't get no better than him. So, I circled my life around a lot of hate. I vowed that I was going to be tough enough and I was going to be strong enough that nobody was ever going to hurt me again. They was never going to hurt my mom again. Whatever it may be. I see my brother work hard and I wanted to work hard. I see my brother, if my brother went and bought a sports car, I might not get it quick, but it wasn't going to be long and I was going to get me one.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to be like my brother.
Yeah.
I wanted to be that kind of
It
man.
wasn't so much a competition with him. It was
No.
an admiration of him.
Because he was the closest thing to a man in my life.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you could say that my dad was. And the last, and I don't want to just bash my dad, the last 4 years of his life, he did get saved. He did do a lot of changing, but, you know, he died September 11th, 2001. I was 18 years old, and he went to the grave without ever saying he loved me or he was proud of me or anything. I boxed for 6.5 years, and I did everything to just make him say, I'm proud of you, you know?
Right.
And I remember whooping my first grown man at a young age because my dad said that I could do it. He told the guy, and I was like, this is my chance, you know? And I'll never forget it. When he died, the hate that I thought would die with him, it become just magnified.
Sure.
And to the point to where I have to this day been to his graveside. I was at the funeral, never went in. Never went in the funeral procession or nothing. And it was not because I hated him. And it wasn't because I was glad he was dead. It was just because I didn't know how to handle that.
Yeah.
Because for so many years, my sole purpose was, I'm going to get you back.
Sure.
And now,
Yeah. It's gone.
what do I do? So
Can I ask you a question about that? Was there a sense, because at this point it's 2001,
right.
so you're still pre-2019 where this life-changing event happens for you.
Correct.
Was there a sense that, you know, my dad sort of robbed from me these things of my youth, and now he's even robbing me of the opportunity to get back with him? Was there still kind of that angry outlook?
Of course. That's what I meant by magnified the hate, because as a kid, I was never allowed to go anywhere. No friends.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was because I chose to go to the boys' ranch or something like that. But, you know, I have a cousin that me and him are like brothers, and his wife to me is like a sister. And now their beliefs are a little bit different than mine. You know, I'm not saying they don't believe in God. They do believe in God. They go to church time to time. Let's put it like that. But they were always the ones that could come and get me away from there for a little bit, and then I have to go back. So a relationship with my family I never had, as far as like being able to just go stay with grandma or
Yeah.
just whatever, you know. My Aunt Peggy, up until she passed, was where me and her was tight. I mean, we were tight. Matter of fact, I smoked one of my first joints with her. We loved music, and we would just sit and talk and just talk and talk and talk. And her favorite artist was Elvis, and she passed away like Elvis. But when she passed away, it was like, okay, my friend's gone now, you know. That was the one that I could call and talk to. So I circled my life around one thing, and when it was gone, it was like, well, what do you do now? I boxed for 6.5 years, 2-time Judo Gold Glove champion, 157-7, and good track record there. Music, I loved music. I loved to sing. I loved just everything about music, but I couldn't. When Dad died, the drugs was the only thing that could numb me to everything in my past. So sober, I hated myself. I hated society. I hated people. But with drugs, I didn't have to feel that.
Yeah.
So at a very early age, I started hanging with an organization and the Aryan Brotherhood. A lot of people look at them like a hate group, but at the time, I look at them like idiots now. I mean, I just not going to sugarcoat it. But at the time, that was a family to me.
Sure.
You know, because the love that I didn't have coming from my dad and the respect that I thought I deserved, or the camaraderie, the brotherhood that I looked for was right here. You know what I'm saying? So I started running with them.
Well, it's the same way you hear so many people get involved in gang activity, right? It's that when there's a void of feeling a part of, anything will fill that void, even if it's the wrong thing. So I appreciate your honesty about
Yeah, well, the one thing that I could never do with the brotherhood was I didn't understand it, because a lot of my friends that I grew up with, they were, you know, of a different race. So it was like, you know. So that was the one thing. But the one thing that we all had in common was we all liked to fight and we all liked to do drugs.
Yeah.
So it was great. It was awesome. So that become my sole thing. So it was like every little bit of hate that I had built up inside of me that was magnified when he died, now I can really release it. And it caused a lot of problems in my life.
Sure.
And this is after you were 18, so you're about how old now?
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to say wasn't very long, probably about 5-6 months. I was spiraled out of control after he passed. I remember coming home one time covered in blood, and I remember my mom asking me what happened, and I was like, nothing. And I go to take a shower, and when I come out, she's in her room praying. She's praying that God would take me so she didn't have to worry about me no more.
Wow.
And those things, you know, at the time I didn't understand. What I thought I understood was nobody cares about me. You got what I'm saying? So as time progressed, it got deeper. So I started getting in a lot of trouble, in and out of jail.
So I'm sorry. So did you look at that prayer as just your mom wanted to get rid of you, rather than seeing the pain in her heart that she'd rather you be?
Right. At the time, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, being a father of my own, and my wife and I just adopting the 3 grandkids, I understand that completely. Like, I do not want them to make those mistakes. I do not want them to go down that path. Like, I will die shielding them from that path. But at the end of the day, it's ultimately their decision. You know, only thing I could do is try to be everything that I didn't have and everything that I wanted. And, you know, Father of the Year award for my oldest 2, that's out the picture. Their grandparents did a great job with them. But I was so in and out of jail, in the streets and everything else to, you know, they knew who I was. They knew I was their daddy. Yeah, they come and spent the night a few times, but that relationship of whatever.
Sure.
You know
Wasn't
what I mean?
there.
Like, you know, but after I got saved, let me just back up. After I got saved, I got to spend some time with them. I got to take Peyton to kill his first deer, and that was awesome, you know, and just those things. We'd fish, buy fishing poles for him, and I loved it. You know what I'm saying? I loved it, but I didn't like, I was scared that it was going to go a different way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So back to when I was about 19, I really poured in. When I was 20, I almost lost my life. Big brawl, got shot, stabbed. Beat up pretty good. God brought me through that for some reason. But in this whole time, my mother had always told me, you know, son, quit running. Son, you need to, you know, she was always praying and, you know, and in the back of my mind, I was like, yeah. And in my heart, you know, it was so cold from hate. So physically, not mentally, but physically, I was like, I don't believe in that, if that makes any kind of sense.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like you were, you talk about being so cold and the effect of the hate. It almost sounds like you were numb emotionally other than these extreme avenues of expression, right?
Correct.
Fighting and just all, yeah.
So everything was a complete turmoil fight. So I was 20 years old, about lost my life, shot, stabbed, beat, ran over, was left for dead. God brought me through that. Why, I don't know, because at the time I still had people praying and I was still going, they were giving God the glory and I was going, no, it's because I'm tough.
Yeah, it was on
tough.
you.
Yeah, I'm tough and I'm going to be tough. And it's like that saying, if you're going to be dumb, you got to be tough, and that's the way it was. Rewind a little bit or fast forward a little bit, a couple years later, wounded up in some trouble. Why God kept me from prison, I'll never know. Deserved to go more than just once or twice. I should be in there today, to be honest with you. But he sheltered me from that. The people in our community, the judges and stuff, and Mark Giudice and a lot of people, they seen more in me. They poured more into me. And, I shuffled to Mark. Mark became a prominent figure in my life, Mark to me is a very strong pillar of the community. Awesome man of God, strong faith. And I love him because he is so blunt. And he was the one that could say, dog, you just going to have to shut up.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the time, me and my brother starting to develop a relationship back up just a few months before that. Some things went south in a house one night and got caught blindside and my left ear got knocked off and it was plastic to keep everybody from going to jail.
Your ear now is plastic.
Yeah, this one right
so
here.
It's been replaced.
So
like
to
the
keep
whole thing?
Yeah, just the inside, the insert right here.
Okay.
So to keep everybody from going to jail, my brother, he comes in and he didn't have anything to do with it. But the story to him that got told was I tried to commit suicide. And that was not the story. So when he come in to keep anything from unraveling, I was like, crap. So I wound up in a loony bin for 30 days, which was awesome. Shout out to my brother, that was a wild ride.
Wait, so you did end up saying, yes, that's what I was trying to do just to help everybody?
Yeah, to keep people from going to jail.
Okay. So you put yourself in the loony bin.
Correct.
Okay. Not
With
your
the
brother.
help of my brother.
Yeah.
Once again, shout out to my brother. But anyways, man, and it was great because what that did was that helped unfog my mind from the drugs.
Almost a forced detox.
Yeah, as far as helped me get my mind back together, as far as the lifestyle, as far as, okay, well, dude, this is not working. You're going to die.
Yeah.
How old were you at this point?
At this point, I was probably 21.
Okay.
21, 22, fixing to going through a divorce with my first wife, which was a great person. She had a problem with dope and whores, and I was perfectly fine with them, just to be honest,
Yeah.
So
Not a good mix, yeah.
Yeah. Great people. Got nothing to say that I was the problem there.
Yeah.
So they go to release.
By the way,
me.
I'm sorry, I got to just,
ahead.
but that's such a recovery statement. I love that, right?
Yeah.
That insight, right? When you can say, hey, I was the problem.
Yeah.
There,
Wasn't
right?
them.
So it's really a glimpse at where we're going with this because that's such a great.
The one thing with addicts is they're never honest.
Yeah.
They're never honest. And the one thing with recovery is if you're going to recover, then you've got to get personal and you got to be honest.
Amen.
And that's something. So it's like when you read the Bible now, when you're in jail, well, you see a lot of people reading the Bible, but they come back and they're talking about just crazy verses or crazy stories, and they're picking out just, you can just tell they're reading it like a novel. And I didn't see this until after I got saved and I wanted to get closer to God. And now, like when I read scripture, those your and I's and shall and I will, that's personal.
Yeah.
That's personal. And recovery, it's very personal.
Amen.
In recovery, you need to be very selfish. You need to be very protective. It needs to be very personal for you. And, man, it's just, wow,
Yeah.
It's
It
just
is
wow.
just wow.
It's a whole different, like when the Bible says he removes the scales from your eyes, gives
Yes.
you different eyes. Wow.
Yeah.
You know, you
During
see
this
totally different.
time, would you say you had a primary drug of choice? Like you've summed up just drugs?
Well, I've tried different drugs, ecstasy, acid, and stuff like that, but I was shooting probably 4 to 7 grams of methamphetamines a day.
Okay.
Now, the hardest drug there was for me to really get off of was marijuana. I was doing about a quarter pound a week.
I hear that a lot.
And, but the marijuana, I'm ADD, ADHD. I'm telling you, squirrel, you know, it's gone. It's a wrap. We're going out there somewhere. But amphetamines leveled me out.
Yeah.
So I could talk to you. I could focus.
Yeah.
Where marijuana, I was wide open.
Yeah.
Everybody else was passed out puking or even wanting to eat. I was gone.
Yeah.
So that was a very tough one. And I will say this, I tried twice before to kick the addiction. And I'm going to get into that in just a minute, but the only way, November the 25th, 2019, right down there at the end of Jericho Road, man, I ain't going to lie to you. I fell flat on my face, and he took it. He took it. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not perfect. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying the one thing, the hate, the drugs, that's all I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And he did exactly what my mom prayed for. He took that life. And he said, it's time for you to see a new one.
I'd like to take a moment to recognize a major podcast sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by America's Thrift Stores, your go-to option for decluttering and giving back. You have a closet bursting at the seams or a garage that's seen better days? We've got the perfect solution for you.
That's right. America's Thrift Stores makes it easy to clear out the clutter and make a positive impact in your community. Whether you are cleaning out your wardrobe, downsizing your living space, or just looking to give back, America's Thrift Stores has you covered.
And here's the best part. You've got options. Schedule a hassle-free home pickup, drop off your items at one of their convenient donation sites, or swing by an America's Thrift Store to donate in person. No matter which way you choose, you're making a difference.
Every donation you make to America's Thrift Stores directly benefits charities in your area, such as the Home of Grace and other fantastic organizations dedicated to helping those in need.
For example, donations made to America's Thrift Stores in southern Mississippi help the Home of Grace provide support and assistance to individuals facing drug and alcohol addiction. Your contributions make a real impact on their mission to provide freedom from addiction through Christ-centered recovery. So, not only are you decluttering your life, but you're also helping build a stronger and more supportive community.
It's truly a double blessing, so what are you waiting for? Clean out that closet, clear out that garage, and make a positive difference in your community by donating to America's Thrift Stores.
Visit America's Thrift Stores online to schedule a home pickup, locate a donation site near you, or get directions to one of their store locations.
America's Thrift Stores, where giving back never goes out of style.
You came up from falling on your face, a new man, it sounds like, right? You knew God was speaking to you. And don't let me put words in your mouth, but that's what I'm hearing. But that's a lifetime of anger. Were there now steps that you had to take to make sure that stayed in the grave? And what did that look like?
Most definitely. So that's going to fall back to the shout out to my brother again.
Yeah.
He, I'll never forget it. We go to the courthouse, and this guy from that day on has been my attorney. And the judge goes, do we need to let you wait in jail, or do you have a place to go? I had no place to go. And when he asked me that was the first real question. Like, and you're thinking, you're going, everything's gone. You have nothing. You don't want to go to jail, but everything's gone. And that was that moment that my brother, that was one of them very humbling moments. My brother said, no, I'll take him. So there was a whole lot of mixed emotions at this time, because it was like, yeah, I really want to be with my brother, you know, because this is my hero, you know. This is my brother, you know. This is big
And for
brother.
you, that's the closest to getting to I really want to be with my dad.
Yeah, so I've always wanted that, you know, that relationship with my brother. Like, you see a lot of guys, they have relationships with their brother, and they're tight, you know. And that's what I really wanted that. You know, I wanted that more than I did anything with my dad. So, anyways, he takes me back to his house, right? So I'm living with them. Oh, man. And it's crazy because then my sister-in-law and I, we don't get along. Now we get along great. You know what I'm saying? But it was all for reasons because I was hard-headed, stubborn. But anyways, I actually didn't want to go to the doctor to get my stitches out of my ear. I said, I want you take them out. So he took them out. So I go to there. Well, at the time, this was basically, you know how you can, you ever see like people pour salt on a slug and it just slowly dissolves? Or you put a tablet in the water and you watch it slowly dissolve? Well, that's what the hate and all the anger that was in me started doing, even though I was ticked because I had to go to the loony bin for 30 days. But I didn't care. Everything with my brother overrode it. You know, and it was like, all right, cool. So going there and then being able to pick up the phone and he's the guy I could call. Well, come time to get out and I was thinking, man, here we go, you know, I'm leaving. Wonder who's going to come get me. It's probably going to be Mom. Wasn't too excited about that, you know. Not that I hated my mom or anything like that. I just, there was some resentment because she kept going back to Dad, you know.
Yeah.
But I remember when I called, JD was like, yeah, they've already told me what time to pick you up. So I was like, oh, you're coming. Yeah. And so in the days that he would come out and go, how's your day today? You know, and just sit down and just talk to me, you know. So those things started breaking that hate and that anger down.
Yeah.
And it was working. Well, so he starts dragging me to church. He's dragging me to church. And I'm like, I don't really believe in this, you know.
Not ready for all that.
This is your deal, bro, you know. But I didn't say anything. I just went, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when I met Mark and Pastor Lott. Met some Brother Jack Roush, which, Lord rest his soul, great man of God. I met some very, very, very strong men of God. But I never truly submitted. So I started playing, I met some really good friends there too, you know. Started playing the guitar there. Chase started teaching me. I started playing, you know, he was teaching me how to play gospel music, you know, and how to, you know, just, you know, how you practice and anyways.
Sure.
Anyways, so I started going, but I really wasn't, you know, I was just going because I love the people.
Yeah.
You know, I love the people.
Or you were finding community.
Exactly. So I felt like I had a purpose. Mm-hmm. Well, one day something happened. And, dude, I really let you know, I had started praying, but I wasn't saved. I was going through the motions. Something happened one day. It was very bad. And I got so upset, man, so upset. And I had hurt a guy. He stole from me, and that made me and that was like the first time in like a year or so that anger just, and when it blew, you know. And
so somebody.
Exactly. And it scared me so bad. And like, I felt like you're going to always be a disappointment. You're never going to be right. And I'll never forget it because, like, these men showed up from the church and, like, they had a prayer circle in the front yard, you know. And I'm living on this guy's couch, you know. Mr. Terry Ingalls, great man. And I've watched God change him and his family. But I'll never forget it. But it was one of them deals where it was like, you're not them. You know, you're not going to ever be them. I was looking at it totally different. I was letting the devil really psych me. Here I am, tattoos everywhere, you know, and I really didn't, you know, people in church, you go to church and you don't think that they ever did drugs.
So here's a little element of that self-loathing still there too, right?
Yeah. So you're looking and you're going, these people don't know what it's like. They've never done drugs.
Or they wouldn't have an outburst like this. Something must be wrong with just me.
Right. So you're just garbage, man. So I ain't gonna lie, man. One day we was sitting there, we was at church, and we played that morning, praise and worship, and I'll never forget it. I felt what I know now as the presence. I felt it. I set my guitar down. I said, dude, I'm out. And I walked out, and I never went back. And we're talking about, I let so many people down. A man that bought a house for me. And and at the time I was.
What do you mean you felt the presence? Because then you walked out. You felt the presence.
Ran.
Well, exactly.
But what did you feel the presence of?
I felt the presence of the Lord.
Okay.
Yeah. And I ran from it because it was like, to me then it was just an emotion. You get caught up in the moment. You got people that cry when they see somebody else cry. When they see somebody else hurt, they hurt. Well, that's kind of what I felt like. And I was like, dude, these people are too good to try to play with, and I just didn't want to do that to them. And I already knew when I walked out, and I already knew what I was doing because, dude, I would get high all week, and then I would stop getting high on Friday just to go to church on Sunday. And like, the crazy thing is these people could tell. Sure. And it was like, how do they know? They never done drugs. Well, that's when I got to hear testimonies from, Mark and some other people, but I'd already made my mind up. So I drew these big lies out and just whatever, Like I said, man, and Mark, great guy, bought me a house. Yeah, he bought me a house. All he wanted to do was see me do the right thing and just stay in church, Now,
well, it strikes me, do it. If I could just interject something just to get your thoughts on this, your life full of anger, fighting, lots of things that are clearly defensive, right? You were well guarded. But the one thing that scared you to death, and I know I'm making this assumption, is vulnerability, right? So here's this moment, you feel the presence of God, and you're like, ooh, that's a little scary, right? I'm not ready to soften up. Is that? Yeah.
Love is something that's shown. Just like respect is something that's given. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when you grow up in a life where abuse, and hate and anger, love is fake.
It's not trustworthy.
Exactly. So the only thing that that's real and the only thing that's consistent in your life is pain. And that was, one of the first tattoos I got was pain. I mean, a lot of people thought it was because I broke my neck and back. They're like, hey, you got pain tattoo. No, it's not why. Because it's the only thing real. It was the only thing real.
It's the only thing that you knew that was real for you.
So at the age of 18, I had already stomached the fact and was okay. I was either going to die in prison or die in the streets, or I was going to spend the rest of my life in prison.
Yeah.
So I already seen that I was fixing to let these people down anyways. So I ran. I left. And it was chaos. It was chaos. So, in the Bible, it talks about when she was running from Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot's wife. She was running from Sodom and Gomorrah, and Jesus told her, don't look back, and she'll turn into a pillar of salt. That's how I ran. But I have been in some serious fights, but this was a fight beyond it. There was no controlling the next move. There was no predicting what was going to happen. There was no who's the toughest, who could take the most, who's got the most stamina. It was a different kind of fight, and I couldn't figure it out. And I was lost. It was just, I was lost. Point blank, I was lost. So I dove back into the drugs real hard. This time, the Bible talks about, demons are 7 times worse.
Yeah.
And I dove in so hard this time. So I made it 2 years sober, okay? I dived back in. Within a year, I was in jail. I don't even think I made it a year. I think for like a solid 6 months, every other week I was in jail.
Before you move on, I want to capture something you just said for anybody who's listening, because it's such a powerful truth, right? That I don't think people understand. You just said the demons come back 7 times stronger. So what that's referencing is a story in the Bible where Jesus has either I'm probably going to butcher the story too, but I think he's cast out demons.
Right.
But the point of the story is once something is cast out, we need to replace it with something good, or what we cast out will come back all the stronger. And I often talk about the difference between sobriety and recovery. Right. And sobriety is just subtraction.
Right.
I'm living the life without the drugs and the alcohol. But sobriety alone is, in most cases, it's a relapse waiting to happen.
Right.
Recovery, I have brought addition back into the equation, right? I've subtracted drugs and alcohol, but now I'm adding good behaviors, good practices, hopefully, and as we believe, Jesus and that faith element. But it's the addition that keeps you sober. Sobriety alone will probably eventually lead you back to using. So I just wanted to capture that because you made that reference very quickly, but I think it's worth highlighting, and I love that you mention it.
If you quit something, you leave a gate to go back through.
Yeah, unless you refill it with something different.
But if you're delivered, the only way you go back is if you choose to.
Yeah.
You got what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So these people were great, dude. I lived, those were the best 2 years of my life. Best 2 years when I was going there, and I was plugged in with Mark and Pastor Lott and everybody. We went whitewater rafting, man. And those are things I never thought I'd do, you know what I'm saying? Like Mark helped me get a truck, and I'll never forget it, man. It really messed with me one day. He introduced me as one of his sons. And that, it threw me. So it wouldn't matter even today, even after I left and was living in sin, drugs real hard, it wouldn't have mattered then if you would have crossed him. I'd have hurt. I mean,
yeah,
you'd have hurt me. I'd have hurt you bad.
Yeah.
And I still feel strongly that way today. But anyways, so for about 6 months, every other week I'm in jail, like for real. You go to the jail, you go to get booked in, and the jailer knows the first 5 numbers of your social, you know?
Yeah.
And, they're just like, they know where you're going. They know what you're going to do. Just go ahead and handle it, you know? And it was just miserable. Well, I winded up, I got in some trouble. Honest trouble, though. For once in my life, honest trouble, right? I know, this is some honest stuff. I go to jail. They hook me up with these charges. And I'm going, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, what are you talking about? And the main thing that the investigator was after was a Monoluk sword, and I didn't even know what that was. And I am all
a
Monoluk sword. So you see the Marines, they have that white glove on with that sword. That's a Monoluk sword, and that is like the holy grail to a Marine. And they made, I seen that day. And I love military. I do. I'm all for military. That's one thing I wanted to do. I wanted to be a Marine or a SEAL. And just bad choices.
Yeah.
Didn't see it through,
Well, now you're a SEAL in God's army, so keep on
That's
going.
right.
That was good.
That's right. So this guy, this investigator, man, which is a great man of God, he was like, I want to know where my Monoluk sword is. I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. What is that? So he breaks it down, and he breaks it down like a pastor on Sunday preaching hellfire and brimstone about the cross. And I was like, this is serious. He's serious. And I don't know. I'm serious. 18 months later, I'm still in jail.
For that offense?
No.
Oh, okay.
So that was just one of the offenses.
Okay.
So anyways, 6 months after I'm locked up, I've got a $250,000 bond. I'm cocky. I'm in there running my mouth. And, they seen to it. We'll break the cockiness. Where as a natural worldly person would go, man, they're just messing with me. It was actually a bunch of men that seen something in me that cared about me. You got what I'm saying? And I see that now. And I've had to go to so many of them and thank them and apologize, So 6 months go by. A friend of ours catches a murder charge. He comes in the jail and he's like, man, where you been? Here. Why? I tell him. He's like, what? He's like, oh no, I know where all that stuff is. I'll tell him. I was like, well, they still got me on these other. I bought 2 cars and didn't know that wasn't supposed to get the cars. I bought them. Anyhow, let me just tell you how God works. So this is about 6 months. So he goes, he tells them, God's not ready for me to leave yet. Because while I'm in there, I'm actually trying to plug in. You know what I'm saying? So God's like, I just need you. It's not time, you know? And I didn't see that then because I was miserable, dude. I was ready to go home.
Trying to plug into what? Because you're in like the...
To the word. Brother Andy Boyles is he has a addiction
like a prison ministry?
No, sir. He has an addiction ministry back home called Embrace Ministries. So this is an awesome man of God, awesome man. And I met him in jail, and he'll tell you the story of the first collect call, and the only collect call he ever took was for me. And I'll never forget it because I had went to court, and I was thinking they're fixing to drop my bond. I'm going to get to go, get a guy out of here. Outside of not even thinking about, you have nowhere to go. Where are you going to go? So I get to court. They're like, yeah, right. Give him another $250. And I was like, man. So I go back, and I'll never forget it, dude. I made the phone call that day to him, and he answered the phone. And I said, Brother Andy. And he said, yes, sir. And I broke. I just started squalling. And man, it was awesome. You only have 3 seconds. Phone goes off. And literally that was said. I said, Brother Andy? He said, yes. And I just break. Phone goes off. About 5 minutes goes by, and he's in the booking room. And he pulls me out. We sat in there, talked for about 30 minutes. And it was the first time that I ever actually, not saying let somebody pray for me, but let them pray with me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there was a stronghold that was broke there. Winded up sitting there for about 18 months. And they turned me loose one day. I was ready to go to prison. I was ready to just get it over with, you know. They turned me loose. They sent me to drug court. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. So I hear all these horror stories about drug court.
Right.
Well, I'm going to just tell you something about drug court. Drug court is a good program. All right. So I go in there and I'm hearing all these horror stories. Well, you know, the people that have the horror stories to say is the people that just going to buck the system, you know.
That can't follow the rules and go to what they're
realized
supposed to.
that really quick. Well, when I came in, I had one PO, Brittany. She winded up taking a different job. She went full-time into law enforcement. So I got transferred to this other guy that was in the same building, and everybody's scared to death of this man, Jeremy Belt. They're scared to death of him. But now you got to stop and think. God knew what he was doing. You know what I'm saying? He knew what he was doing. It says it in the book of Jeremiah, for I know the plans. Amen. You know what I'm saying? And he knew exactly what he was doing. So he puts me not only with the most strict guy that you could have as a PO, but he put me with the most professional, most spirit-filled Christian guy. So at the time, I'm thinking law enforcement hates me. Everybody in the city, everybody in this community, they hate me. I'm never going to be nothing else. I've killed this relationship that I was starting to have with my brother. Everybody's done with me. They won't even bring me a biscuit. I've been in jail for 18 months. No letters, no nothing, you know. So at this time, you know, I come in, and as soon as I walk in, he goes, Joshua Bassett. And I'm like, dude, can I at least introduce myself one time? You know? So, but it was great because the first thing out of his mouth is exactly what he walked out the whole 5 years of our relationship, which has now been almost 18 years of our relationship. So the first thing out of his mouth is, he said, I don't care where you've been. I don't care where you come from. Don't fail my drug test. Don't lie to me, because I care about where you're going. Well, at the time, I never understood. I was, I think, well, he's a cop. He cares. He wants to put you in prison.
Right.
No. Day by day, that brother walked it out. He walked a Christian walk, And there was times I watched him. Oh, he's finna trip up. He's finna trip up. I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him right here. I'm calling him out. Call him out. No. It didn't matter. He did his job, but he cared more about your salvation than anything, So God knew exactly what he was doing. So now this is the first guy in law enforcement to ever care about where I'm going and not where I've been, to talk to me like I'm somebody, So I leaned on him really hard, Like I had to go to this guy and ask him how to be a dad. Yeah.
How many children did you have at this time?
2.
Okay.
So, like, literally, I was like, man, I don't know what to do. I thought being a man was you don't let the next guy whoop you and you don't let nobody get over on you.
Yeah.
So when I tell you a relationship, he was the best man in my wedding. Like, really?
Yeah.
So I'll never forget it. In the meantime, I meet my wife, which was a whole nother transaction, because now I found somebody that not necessarily understands me, but takes the time to try to understand me and help me,
Was she a person of faith at this point, or in her own journey at this point? What's happened?
Yeah, she was a believer, but she, at the same time, she wasn't in church. Now, she was not a partier. She was not a drinker, no drugs, anything like that, no. Her dad was a Methodist preacher. I never got to meet him. I wish I could have. I'm glad that I didn't, because he would have probably killed me. But my wife loved her daddy. And you could tell that was daddy's girl, And I get to hear the stories all the time, and I love hearing them. But I met her, and it was not that I had somebody that understood me. It's I had somebody that was willing to take the time to understand me. And then it was like, okay, well, I want to have something. I want to, And one day it was like, why are you with me? I have nothing to offer. Why are you here? Well, that was the day that I knew, hey, this woman loves you, man. So I made that promise. I said, you know what? If you don't ever get in front of me, you don't ever try to control me, I'll take you where you need to be. So over the years, my wife has learned, when I tell you something, that's what I mean. And I don't care if we're in front of the judge's bench. It'll get real fast. So we decide.
Meaning that you're a man of your word, or that
Yes.
you will be quick to, okay.
Yes. So we have tied up in the courtroom before. But anyways, we decide we're going to get married. We do it the right way. We're going to wait for marriage. But you got to stop and think now. I'm not a believer. But when I get out of jail, I'm still going to embrace, and, I'm trying.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying I'm not a believer. I just wasn't saved.
Sure.
You got what I'm saying? I was still struggling.
Your eyes have been open to the possibility. You haven't quite
Right.
crossed that bridge yet.
But it was like God was protecting me from Satan, because he was going, but he wasn't doing anything. Not saving me. I'm not saying he wasn't saving me, but he was like, not yet. I'm not done showing you yet. I need you to see these things. And I wasn't ready to submit. Okay. So anyways, we're going to church, everything's going good. We get married. Great. Wouldn't change it for nothing. Just celebrated 13 years of marriage, 14 together. June the 25th. That's how I remember. 25th is how we set the date. But back up, man. The whole time I'm in drug court, I don't fail a drug test. I don't get in any trouble. I'm starting to build a business. Like I'm having something, like I'm on my way. And like 5 years.
Drug use is done at this point?
Yeah, 5 years, no drugs. None. And once again, when you got to fill that void.
Yes.
So in this 5-year period, now I quit going to church because I'm working all the time, yada, yada, yada. Drug court's over. It's over.
There's the void.
So
I
now
graduate. As soon as I graduate, rumors start. Oh, he's been doing drugs. He's been selling drugs. He's been doing this. He's been doing it. And right hand to God, that was the one time in my life that everything that I did was spot on, and I didn't want anything to do with drugs. And I'll never forget it. I came home and she asked me, and I was like, what? I was hurt. People were coming and going, hey man, heard you done fell back off. I'm like, no, I ain't. So I just said, you know what? That's the card I was dealt. That's just what I'm dealt. So I'll never forget it. I looked at her and I was like, you don't know, I'll show you. But I'm going to remind everybody else. And it was, that lasted, no joke. That lasted about 8 months. And in that 8 months
of diving back into drugs.
Right. Maybe a year. I made it probably I made it about 6 months after drug court. And then for the next year was just crazy. Man, it was crazy. So I started off 4 to 7 grams. I picked up where I left off. Just brutally violent.
Before we go any further, let's take a minute to address the man or the woman listening to today's episode and wishing for a better life. Or maybe addiction has completely overtaken a family member or a friend.
You are not alone. As you may know, the Jesus Loves Addicts podcast is produced by the Home of Grace, a Christ-centered addiction recovery program in South Mississippi with over 60 years of experience.
The Home of Grace has residential programs ranging from 30 days to 12 months. With 2 separate campuses for men and women, they are fully staffed with caring individuals who want nothing more than to guide you to a life of recovery.
Services include individual and group counseling, marriage and family counseling, classes, workshops, GED, and workforce training, all grounded in biblical principles.
And because of donations from the community, the cost of the program is incredibly affordable.
Thousands of alumni from all across the country can tell you there is no other program in the world quite like the Home of Grace.
If you want to start a new path to recovery, don't wait. Speak with their admissions specialist today. Visit homeofgrace.org or call 833-55-GRACE to talk with someone.
That's 833-55-GRACE. Call the Home of Grace today.
We say that a lot in recovery, just that no matter how long that you stay clean, when someone relapses, you are literally picking up where you left off. You stayed clean 5 years and you picked up as though you had never stopped using, and yet addiction speaking, you're going to progress very quickly.
Very fast. So from day one, a while ago when I told you in my story about how it magnified that anger and that hate.
Yeah.
It was like the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. He dropped a seed and he just, and that's exactly how it was. So spiral out of control just immediately. And I had some very prominent people that was like, Josh, come on, get back with it. People that was in business with me, people that I did business with, they were like, dude, you need some help. Come on, let me help you, you know? And I was like, no, buddy, I wanted to talk about me. So here it is. I don't care, you know, just leave me alone. To the point to where the anger and the aggression and just the hate, the temper, I drove my truck in a house, you know? And I'll never forget it, man. This guy.
Intentionally? Because you were angry? You drove your truck?
Yeah. So I'll never forget it. We had this guy that worked for us, Earl, and him and his brother Clint. They were awesome guys, and I could always tell there was something about them 2 guys. And I really liked them 2 guys. Yeah, you meet somebody and you just really like them. I really like Clint and Earl. And one night, man, Earl just calls. It's like 2 a.m, right? He calls me. He say, bro, where you at? Now, this guy lives in Oklahoma. And I tell him, and he was like, He's like, you know, dude, I used to have a drug problem. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, I gave that up. He's like, I actually got saved. I was like, wow. He's like, man, really? You don't got anything tying you down here? Yeah, you got your business and stuff. He said, why don't you and your wife move out here? I've got a place. Why don't you move out here? So at the time, I was like, yeah. You know, I was like, I don't know. A couple of days went by and he just kept on and kept on, you know. So finally one night, I'll never forget it. I was sitting at a buddy of mine's. And I just did a shot. I was, just as soon as the needle hit my arm, it was just like, you know what? I'm out. So I picked the phone up to call him to tell him, you know, I'm going to come. He doesn't answer. So all day long, I'm trying to call him. He doesn't answer. I don't ever get him. So that next night, phone rings. I answer. It's Clint. And, but he's calling from Earl's phone. And I was like, hey, man. And he goes, hey, bro, I just found my brother dead in a hotel. That was my out. It was like, that was my rescue. You know what I'm saying? So it's like now at this point, it's an ongoing process. So I'll never forget it, man. I was so mad. I was so angry. And I was ticked off at God, dude. I ain't gonna lie. I spun out of control. I go to our farm. I pull up in the truck and I have an AK next to me. I put it to my chin and I pull the trigger and it blew out the side of the chamber without ever thinking, without ever batting an eye, nothing. Boom. And I'll never forget it. It was like a flash, just a pow. And it was a whole different level of anger after that, you know. I remember throwing a gun. I remember jumping out of my truck, and I remember cussing God, just cussing him. And I remember taking those shots, and it felt like I was having a heart. Never had a heart attack. Don't want one either. If it hurts worse than that, I don't want no more, nothing else to do with it. But I remember just caving with my chest to the ground and getting up and just being so angry with God because I wasn't dead. Yeah. And I was bound and determined that day to die. Crazy story is the guy that I was doing drugs with says, hey, man, you need to call this guy. We like you too much to watch you kill yourself, bro. You need to call this guy. Like you. At this point, nobody knew that I tried to commit suicide. Nobody knew it. Nobody knew. They just seen the extensive drug use. You know, when you're doing 4 to 7 grams a day, you know, that's a lot. Mm-hmm. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a quarter ounce of meth.
Yeah.
You know, and every single day I'm doing it. And now not only am I'm doing the meth, I've got the alcohol mixed in, the whiskey mixed in, and it's just a recipe for disaster. I'm looking for trouble. I'm looking for that person that I could take out of society, make them breathless to make the world better. I'm looking for that person to take me out. So that morning I pull up, I put the gun in my head, pull the trigger, blows out the side of the chamber. The flash scared me. I sling the gun, I jump out the truck, I'm cussing God. I'm telling him there's nothing about him real because anybody that I ever care about, you either remove them from my life or you take them from my life. You're not real. You don't love me. You don't care nothing about me. So whatever it is that you're trying to do, stop doing it. Just remove yourself from my life. And I meant that. I said, you said you take the addiction. It's the only thing that's been here. You said you take the hurt. It's the only thing that's been here. You said you take the pain. It's the only thing that's been here. Where are you? 7 o'clock that morning, I was face first in the dirt by 2 God-fearing cops. And I'll never forget it. I see him coming up and like, I'm so tired, I don't even care. You know what I'm saying? Like mentally and physically, just, I'm done. I'm exhausted. I don't care. And I see them, they pull up, they come to me, you know, they're ready for a fight. They're ready for me to run or whatever. And that's what I was known for, you know. And they're ready for it. And this is not a guy you want to run you down and get on you. I promise you, this is There's certain ones in law enforcement you could just kind of go, bless your heart, but this is not one of them. You just bless their heart. You better do what he says, man.
Yeah.
So anyways, he's a big guy. And I didn't even care. I really didn't care. He told me, he said, Josh, put your hands behind your back. And I just looked at him dead in his face and said, man, thank you. And just laid down. Had a misdemeanor charge, and I told him, I said, the drugs are in my truck. The drugs is in the truck. I need some help. I don't know what to do. I need some help. So I go to jail. They have these other two guys. They take me to jail. I like to consider them friends. Sometimes I don't know, But at the time, Tom and Jerry, and they were just the nice ones,
Yeah.
And the one guy I knew before, I knew he knew what it was like out in that life, but his wasn't really a user. But anyhow, I go to jail, and I'll never forget it, man. I'm there, and I just want to make a phone call, and all chaos just erupts, and I'm in a frenzy. They got my wife down there trying to cool me off, and I just wanted to make a phone call. They said I could make a phone call, and it was just one of them deals. See, I told y'all he'd be back, and it was crazy, man. I was lost. I was tired, and I was fighting myself. I was fighting demons, and it was like, dude, just put me in there and leave me alone. You know what I'm saying? Just leave me alone. So I'll never forget it. My wife comes to get me. She takes me. I said, just take me to the farm. She carries me out there. And she goes back and bonds this other guy out of jail, because the little guy, he comes to help. And dude, we're finding vials of dope just everywhere. Just 60 grams each valve, already liquidized, ready for a shot. And then we'd find needles, and then we'd find a pipe. And it was just crazy, man, how the devil just kept on. And I was like, I really don't want to do it. And the only closure I could find was just pouring it out. That was the only closure I could find, was just spraying it out. So I was like, man, you know what? Screw it. My phone rings, and it's this guy that we get out together. He buys drugs from me, I buy drugs from him, whatever. And he's like, dude, you need to call this guy. I was like, man, here we go. So I called Mark first. I was like, dog, I need some help. And he's like, I'm going to call you back just a minute. I'm finna get it ready, And he was ready, because that's the first time I'd ever asked for help. Mm-hmm. So, and normally when I say something, that's what I mean, I'm being honest now, you know what I mean? So I was sitting there, and we winded up, we set this whole place on fire. I just burn it all, just set it all on fire. So we set this place on fire. I make a phone call, and this guy drives like 2.5 hours to help a guy he's never met before in his life. And to me, that was real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when he pulled up, this big guy walking down the hill, and I'm thinking, I've never told on anybody, and I don't owe anybody no money. It's a big guy. He's going to have to get what I got. You know what I mean? I go up, I meet him halfway. He said, you Josh? And I said, you got him. How bad you want him? And it was one of them deals like, I'm not backing down, but this dude's going to eat your lunch. Yeah. It's going to be a good fight. It's going to be a real good one. He's tough. And, he said, man, I heard you're a serious cat. He said, Chris Graham told me a lot about you. You know Crumb, and even if I know him, I'm going to say, no, I don't know,
You don't know why he's here yet.
Yeah. And he goes, hey, man, I just come to tell you about the well. And what the well done for me. I was sitting there, and he started sharing his testimony, man. And I seen the pain, and I seen the sincerity. I seen the love. I seen everything that I had been wanting and fighting for. And I was hearing it come out that man's mouth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'll never forget it. He turns around to walk off. I said, man, I tried to kill myself. He turned around. He said, brother, you're not in this alone. He said, I'll sit here with you all night. He said, I ain't got nothing. He said, I got work to do. He said, I can do it tomorrow. So we winded up, we talked for a while, and he said, man, if you want to go to the home of grace, he said, I'll carry you. He says, your partner want to go down there? And Dylan, bless heart, he's running around. Dylan was like, yeah, sure, So I'm thinking, I told him, I said, man, I don't have any money left. I've got all these tools. I've got stuff, I've got belongings. But None of that matters, you know? He's like, don't worry about it. So, which is a crazy story. It's a godsend because I fought suicide so bad for the next week, like literally fought. Like I fought to keep myself alive. No drugs, like literally fought not.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself.
Desire.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And like it was a very exhausting fight. Like mentally, physically, like it was bad.
Yeah.
And to the point to where it got down to, man, my wife, I scared her so bad, she shot at me. And I know she's going to watch this, so I'm sorry. But I've never put my hands on her. I don't believe in that. I don't like that. But I had fought suicide. I wanted to push her away so bad so she would just leave and I can do it. But the one thing about it was Dylan wouldn't leave. So somebody was going to be with me anyways. Well, we make it to the church where Bubba's at. We pull up. First thing I see is a cop car. I'm thinking it's a setup. So we're in the middle of the church parking lot, and I'm livid. I'm throwing stuff across the parking lot, across the street. I'm mad. And then out walks a guy that used to buy drugs from me, or that had bought drugs from me a time or two. And he's like, hey, man, we're having church in here, you know? And I'm looking at this guy like, really? Like, seriously, bro? And I'm not going in there. The cop is in there. Y'all got me. That was not the case. So that's when I realized that one of my arresting officers also has a pretty powerful testimony. So, man, Bubba comes out. We come to the home of grace. He was waiting for us to dock. We stayed at the hotel in Van Cleve there. And he, to this day, I tell you, he said, I really didn't think he'd be there in the morning. But the next morning, I was waiting on Bubba, you know. It's like, man, I've made it this far. If I could just get to wherever they're talking about, maybe I can just talk to somebody, you know, or just get somewhere by myself and just die. I'll never forget it. So it was November the 25th, 2019. I come through the gates. So everything that I told you that I ran from at All Seasons playing the guitar, that feeling of the Spirit of God, I ran from that feeling. But I recognized, I knew that feeling, you know what I'm saying? To the feeling that I felt with Bubba that day, I recognized. To the feeling that with Brother Andy, I recognized every one of those, okay? Now, you got to keep in mind, I have been homeless. Sure. I have, dude, you know, they've called my mother and said, hey, look, we're not expecting him to make it through the night. I mean, yeah, just serious things. And out of all of that, out of all the pain, out of all the hate, out of everything that was ever real, the 4 times in my life that I recognized something and I knew that was real was these 4 times. So there was 5 times. The 4th time was when we crossed the gates and we come in. This is no joke. The moment that I came into admin, the spirit of suicide left me. It left, like literally. And I don't know if it was because I was meeting a whole bunch of different people or if we were meeting counselors and they were getting me booked in and we got to get this and here's your orientation book. We're going to move you. I don't know if it was that or what. But that night we go to the chapel and it was crazy because it was like, I'm walking to the chapel. Are you serious? We get to the chapel. And I don't make it through the sermon, you know. And I knew that feeling, and I said, you know what, God, this is my last ditch effort. If this don't work, I promise you my family's going to bury me. Because I'm tired of fighting. I am done. I am completely done, wore out. Whatever it is I'm fighting, I can't fight it no more. Like, so this is literally your chance. So, man, I'll never forget it. I got down on my hands and I just laid on my face and I cried and I prayed. And I didn't know how to pray, you know, and Paul says that. He says, you know, we don't know what we want. Well, 3 verses later, when he come out of his prayer closet, he says, I don't know what I need, but I know how to pray.
Yeah.
You know? So that was one of them deals, and it was like, I'm so glad that God knows my own heart. You know, he knows your own heart. He knows what you need. And I'm glad that he knew that day, November the 25th, he knew salvation, restoration. He knew what I needed.
Amen.
And I'll never forget it, man. That day was from that day on, there was no fight, the addiction, the suicide, all that. Now, I'm not saying I was perfect when I left, because I would get angry, and even to this day, I'll get upset and I'll say a cuss word and I'll go, oh, I'm sorry. I slipped. No, I'm human, man. I'm trying.
Amen.
But I remember laying in my bed in the cottage, and I said, I'm probably going to go to prison. And I didn't care. Because now I have something that can't nobody take from me.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'll never forget it. Like, all I wanted to do was just lay there and pray, and I just wanted to lay there and listen to God and just read His Word. And I just wanted to be in His presence, And I'll never forget it. 2:00, and for some reason, everything happens at 2:00 in the morning with me. 2:00 in the morning, I felt it. And I just felt it from the head of from my head to the tip of my toes, and He said, "Forgiven." And I'll never forget it. I woke everybody up in my room, and they were like, "Yeah, that's good, man. Go back to sleep." But it was different,
Mm-hmm.
Josh, let me ask you a quick question, and I hate to do this. I probably should have steered this a few minutes ago.
Right, go ahead.
But your testimony is so powerful. But you've gotten to this moment where this is just an honest look at who you are today. How many years now have you been?
4.5.
4.5 years.
4.5.
Josh, I wish we could go on and on. I'd love to have you back to tell more of this story. But what I want to say, as you were talking, it's such an amazing story of God's love for us. And
right.
And that's what I hear so loud and clear in your story. And so I kind of just want to speak to the person listening for a moment. If you feel, and I'm sure, almost certain Josh would echo this. You may feel like you're a million miles away from help. You may feel like you're a million miles away from the love of God. You may not even feel like God is in your orbit. I just want to tell you this. It's only because you're looking in the wrong direction. All He wants you to do is turn around.
Yep.
He's right there, I promise you. It feels like He's not because you're looking the wrong way. Please, guys, find somebody. Hear this story. Hear this testimony. Turn around. I think I'm just going to leave it there. Turn around, right? Turn around. It's a still small voice, but it'll rise above the chaos if you will turn around and look in His direction.
Well, I'm going to add, He'll pursue you. And that was what I got out of Josh's whole story, was this rock hard heart. And the Lord did whatever it took to chip away until Josh finally reached that moment of just pure, I'm defeated, but I'm surrendering. Yeah. And that's when the Lord could move. And that was just powerful to me.
Yeah. He will break you. Mm-hmm. Because He loves you. It's not a power struggle. He doesn't need to arm wrestle you. It's not a pride. He's going to break you for your sake, right? If you're willing, just turn around. Listen, we love you. Jesus loves you. JesusLovesAddicts.com. We'd love to hear your story. Wow, Josh, thank you so much again.
Well, Jesus loves us too much to jeopardize our future, to waste our future.
Right.
Oh, that's good.
And you mentioned that He cares where we're going, not where we've been.
That's right.
Amen. Thank you, guys.